So you just got a letter from the Internet Domain Name Services Company and you're wondering what you should do. Well, in this video, I'm going to talk to you about who they are, what they're trying to do, and probably the best action you should take. Hey guys, Chris Love, the owner of Love to Dev, and today I'm going to talk to you about something that business owners need to be aware of that I have helped many out with over the years, and that is domain registration scams. In particular, in this video, I'm going to talk about a company called Internet Domain Name Services Company, or IDNS. I'm going to bring them out in particular because if you're like me, you've been receiving letters from them. Well, maybe one letter, depends on how many domains you have. But you see, I have several dozen domains that I own personally, but I also manage domains for some of my customers. And without fail, usually a few times a year, I get an email or a phone call from one of those clients asking me, what is this bill? I thought I was paying you. Well, you see, the IDNS sends out invoices, fake bills, if you will, to people who have domains that are coming up for renewal. And what they're trying to do is get you to pay them for your domain registration, and at the same time transfer your domain registration from the company you currently use to them. Now, ethically, this is a super dark gray area. It's not illegal, but it's kind of shady at best. Okay, and this is not anything new. I've seen these kind of scams over the years. For example, 15 to 20 years ago, I can't remember the company's name, but they had an office on the Canada and the United States side of Niagara Falls. That way they could try to scam people out of their domains on both sides of the border. Now, what does IDNS actually do? Well, it's sort of like when the power gets deregulated, the electricity or your other utilities, and all these kind of third-party companies pop up that effectively resell the real provider's services. And often what happens is they promise you savings, but in reality they wind up charging you much more than you were paying before. Now, IDNS is essentially upfront that they're going to charge you more than you would be paying anyway. Their rate for 1-year domain registration is $45 for a .com. Now, I don't know about you, but I know what the wholesale cost is for different domains. And that's because I register a lot of domains, and I have registered a lot of domains over the years for myself and for my customers. And basically, I act as a management company or management service or concierge, if you will, for my customers to manage their domains. Now, personally, I do this more or less as a favor because I don't charge more than what it really costs at a wholesale level. In fact, it's really negligible if you think about it. But for me, it's more important that my customers' domains are managed in a proper way. Now, there's more to domains than just the registration. There's also DNS and other factors that play into it. Now, don't just have open domain registration for a reason, and that's because it's kind of the wild, wild west right now. And that's sort of because it did get deregulated, which I do love deregulation in general. But what you have to be careful for is scammers. A lot of times you'll see companies that offer really cheap domain registration rates for the first year. For example, it's not uncommon to see domain registration for $3.99 or $4.99 a year. That company's selling it to you at a loss. For a .com, the wholesale cost is roughly between $11 and $12. Now, that's varied a little bit over recent years. A few years back, it was basically $8 to $10. But each of the top level domains has actually increased their wholesale pricing, but that shouldn't be of a concern to you. Now, to give you an idea, to my customers, I charge $15 a year for domain registration. Now, it costs me just under $12 to actually do that registration, so you can see I'm not personally really pocketing much money. In fact, when you consider how much time it takes for me to go through, fill out the forms, and deal with all the other stuff that goes along with it, it's really a loss leader for me. Like I said, it's more of a courtesy. So what about those companies that charge $3.99 and $4.99 a year? Well, usually year 2 hits and it's $35 to $50 a year. Now, IDNS offers discount rates if you do multiple years, but again, drastically over the going rate. Now, you can register a domain for up to 10 years at a time, and I've had some very smart customers go ahead and do that. In fact, I noticed on my domain management system the other day that I've got a couple of customers that have domains coming up for renewal that were registered a decade ago, and they haven't had to touch them since. So what is domain registration? Well, first, domain names are a way for us to address places on the internet without having to use the IP address system. Now, if you're not familiar with IP addresses, they're numbers. They're blocks of 255, so it would be something like 255.255.255.255. Now think about running an ad for something like that. Not going to happen. Much harder to memorize than phone numbers are. The other side of it too is we can place multiple end destinations or domains on a single IP address. That makes the internet very flexible and scalable. So there's a lot of advantages to it, but we have to have a system in place to manage that. So at the root, there are what we call top-level domains like .com, .net, .org, and then there's a lot of country-specific domains like .uk and .ca for United Kingdom and Canada. But it doesn't end there. In the last few years, we've also got a lot of keywords or topic-specific domain extensions out there, and I won't even bother with those. I honestly don't see very many people registering them. Now, the price of each one of these top-level domains varies based on who really owns that particular top-level domain. Now, there's usually not a business that owns it per se. It's usually an organization or a country management infrastructure or something like that, like a government or a governmental type of body for the most part. So I've seen some of these country top-level domain registrations cost several $100s a year. For example, I think .io is roughly $70 to $80 a year. It's one of the reasons why you don't see me using .io, even though it's kind of the chic thing to do right now. Now, these companies that do offer these discount rates, they have a kind of a loss leader agenda there, so be careful. They're going to try to upsell you on additional services that you may or may not need, and oftentimes they're at much higher rates than what you could get on the open market as well. Now, I'm not going to go into that because I want to focus on IDNS for the most part in this video. So again, what they're really trying to do is get you to transfer your domain from your current registrar or provider for domain registration to them. Now, domains are registered 1 year at a time, but like I said, you could actually do that for up to 10 years. And the way I like to put it is, if you could renew your car's license plate for up to 10 years and not have to worry about your car registration, it might be a good idea to do that because, honestly, I hate dealing with paperwork. And if you think your site's going to be around for a decade, investing $150 to $200 right now so you don't have to worry about it in the future might be a good idea too. And also, like I said, the price of that registration is slowly creeping up. So maybe it's a good time to lock in that price right now. Now, who is IDNS? Well, who the heck really knows is probably somebody out there who's effectively reselling other people's services. That's honestly what I do, and I'm upfront with it about my customers. I am not a domain registrar. A domain registrar has to go through a certain verification process, and there is a steep amount of capital in it to meet the requirements. Trust me, I looked into it about 15 years ago when the system opened up for registrars beyond just network solutions. And my calculation back then was it was going to cost me a cool $200,000 or more just to meet the requirements and get up and running. So it's a lot easier for me to use another system that allows me to effectively almost white label it, if not white label or private label that service. And they are the actual registrar. I'm just the person selling the business at a wholesale cost. So most likely it's just a 1 or 2 people operation, that doesn't have a real physical place to live at or operate out of. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I work out of my house and I don't have a problem with that. But if you look up the address in Jersey City, New Jersey, and you go visit it on Google Maps, what do you see? A UPS store. Now, there are legitimate home-based businesses that do use places like a UPS store as their business mailing address. I used P.O. boxes for a while just to keep my personal address out of the mix. And that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world to do, but when you see it with something like this, you pretty much know it's a scam. Now these guys, all they have to do is go to their P.O. box there and get the checks in the mail each day. Now they've also got a website set up, and if you notice, it's not a .com, it's a .ac, which is one of those kind of outlandish kind of places to go do this at, and it's probably because there's some sort of legal shield in front of them. That's another smell that you might want to pay attention to right there. So what should you do if you get a letter from IDNS? Well, you're getting it because your domain is coming up for renewal. So renew your domain. But throw the IDNS letter in the trash. Talk to whoever manages your domain. That could be you. It could be somebody like me who manages your website or web services for you. Make sure that they know it's time to renew the domain and to go ahead and do it. Now, if you're getting charged more than $30 or $40 a year to do it, I would try to negotiate or switch services. Like I said, for my customers, I charge $15 a year for this, and that's for .com. Now, if you wanted to register one of those more expensive domains, then I'll definitely raise the fee to reflect that, because I got to pay for the actual wholesale cost. And so that's obviously part of it. So make sure your domain's registered. Throw the IDNS letter in the trash. Forget about it, but let it serve as a notice that you definitely need to get your domain renewed. And at the same time, you're probably getting some sort of notices via email from your actual registrar reminding you it's time to renew your domain. And I can't emphasize enough, renew your domain and check it at least once a year. Make sure all your contact information is up to date. I've had several customers over the year, despite automated emails coming from my system and me physically picking up the phone and calling them, did not renew their domain, and their site went offline at the day that it goes past that registration date. Now, don't fear if you did miss it. You can renew the domain and get it back up and going. Usually it takes about 12 to 24 hours for that process to happen, but you've got some damage there, especially if you've got a business critical presence on the web. So again, make sure your domains are registered, and if possible, register them for multiple years, as much as you can afford to do, to be honest with you. Now, if you got any questions about domain registration or domain names in general, feel free to leave those in the comment section below. If you think this was helpful for you, please hit that like button. And if you got a friend or business owner who you think might be affected by the IDNS letter, share this video with them as well. You can just hit that share button and make that happen a whole lot faster. Thanks a lot. And again, I'm Chris Love with Love to Dev, and I'm here to help you with all your web presence and web development needs.